The Game Week 31 deadline live stream. Hope you are doing well. It is a glorious sunny day in the UK. Let me know in the chat wherever you are tuning in from. But going into today's deadline, we have got a few hot topics that we need to discuss. We got to talk about those Game Week 31 wildcards. Obviously, those managers that missed Game Week 30 wildcard probably feel like they've got a good opportunity to go against some of the popular players. We'll discuss that in this live stream. I'll reveal my team because I think the big talking point going into this specific game week is who the hell do we captain? Alexander Isak away against Leicester, but he is currently flagged. Mo Salah away against Fulham, but I would argue that is a tricky fixture. Then we got some rogue picks like a Cole Palmer away against Brentford or a Marmoush away against Man United. So I don't think there's any right answer going into this game week, but we are going to talk about in a little bit of detail which captain you should go for, and then you make your own decision on which one you feel more comfortable with. So let me know, guys, where you're tuning in from in the world, in the chat. And as always, the most important thing in these streams is to answer all of your last minute questions. We're going to go for the next probably like 45 minutes or so. I can't go up until the deadline, unfortunately, but we'll go as long as we possibly can. So try and put the stuff in the chat and I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. Gordon in the chat, as always. Hope you're doing well, Gordon. Good day, Nacho. What are your thoughts on starting Villa's defence, Martinez and Concert over Raya and Vardy out this game? Gordon, that is exactly the deliberation that I personally have. Now, with Nottingham Forest, we don't have any confirmation whether Wood is going to be starting or not. And of course, Wood being not in the team for Forest does obviously make the Villa defence a bit more appealing from a clean sheet perspective. Would I go double? I probably wouldn't. I'd probably in this case go for Raya over Martinez and Concert over Vardy out if you really do feel bullish on the Aston Villa clean sheet. Of course, if you're in a position where you really do think they're going to keep the clean sheet, then yes, double down on it. With Gabriel being out, it does diminish that Arsenal defence slightly, but I would still argue that Arsenal are good defensively and Everton don't necessarily score a bag full of goals. Cheeks are doing very well, mate. Hope you are as well. Steamboat saying, hey, Nacho, hope you're well. Who do you think are the best Clivert replacements? I'm thinking of Marino. Okay, so I don't mind Marino as a replacement because he is playing as a forward in this Arsenal team. The fixtures coming up are decent, and of course a double officially announced in Game Week 33. So I think Marino is good. However, let's bring up the fixtures a minute. Hopefully I've got them here. Yes, I do. So these are the fixtures between Game Week 31 and Game Week 36. Yes, we could go further off in the distance, but let's just take a look at these in particular. So I think the first thing I would say to you is, what kind of strategy you on? If you don't have a free hit available, then of course Game Week 34 is going to be a bit of an issue if you do buy Marino in this case, because they of course are going to blank. So yes, they double in Game Week 33, but they will have Real Madrid games either side of the Brentford game, so that's not ideal in preparation for that double. Of course, Palace doubling in 32 and 33, even though they are really not ideal fixtures, and Crystal Palace have got the FA Cup semi-final to contend with, which I think is going to see rotation in the Arsenal game. I would say to you, Marino is a pick, but I would also look at Murphy if you don't already own, and a Palace midfielder if you're not already tripled up. If you are in that case, then you've got to ask yourself, is Rodgers a viable pick in that Aston Villa team, which I do think he is. But I like Marino as a differential. And I do feel like for those wildcarding in Game Week 31, that is one of the examples of where you have got the upper hand if he does emerge as a brilliant differential. David saying, good morning. Good morning. What do you think to bring in Harvey Barnes? Okay, so personally, I don't love it because I don't think he makes up the best front three of this Newcastle team. Yes, he might start this week because Gordon has only been in individual training. I don't think he is going to return this game week now that he has served his suspension. And I think Jacob Murphy is locked in on that right-hand side. So you might get one game out of Harvey Barnes. I don't think you get Game Week 32 as well. And unless you were looking at a one-game week punt, and even then Harvey Barnes is a bit of a risk, I wouldn't be considering it myself, David. That's not to say he doesn't start this week and do well, because of course Leicester, for any player that starts, is a great game. Sanders saying, who do you bench, Savinho or Sarr? Okay, so this is a really difficult one because of course I'm in that position as well. I think we got to say to ourselves, we have no idea whether Savinho's minutes are going to be locked in or not. I think with the Kevin De Bruyne announcement, we don't really know whether that's good or bad in terms of minutes. I think one would argue that Man City now have to prepare for a team without Kevin De Bruyne, which means the minutes are going to be significantly less. But then, of course, we have seen where he wasn't playing at all in game week 30. So does that mean that he was being saved for the Manchester derby, which could then impact the minutes of Savinho in some capacity? I'm currently leaning towards starting Salah over Savinho, but I think it is really close. And I do think Man United, regardless, are a team that you would like to play your attackers against because they still are not watertight defensively by any means. So I was just checking out the news there. We've got a super chat here from Scott. Scott, as always, mate, massively appreciated. You're always regular on these streams, and this is just very generous, as always. So thank you, mate. And let me know... Oh, you've already put it in. Top 15k, Scott. You are smashing it. Honestly, mate. Absolutely killing it. It's great to see. So your plan is to wildcard in 32, interestingly. Bench boost in 33. Free hit in game week 34. Any team advice. I have taken a -4 to swap Kluivert and Robinson for Saka and Livramento. Okay, so in general, I like the moves. I think Saka, while his minutes might still be a bit sporadic, because of course, the lineup that we have for Arsenal right now, let me just make sure I've got this correct. And this was the only reason why I was hesitant on bringing in Bukayo Saka. So we got the game against Everton, which is going to be today, the lunchtime kickoff. Then we have got the first leg of Real Madrid afterwards. Then we got the Brentford game, which is obviously down here, guys. And then we have got the second leg of the Real Madrid game before the Ipswich game. So I do think Saka's minutes at times could be a little bit conflicting, but of course, we don't know that for sure. I would say here, regarding your team, the -4's been done. I like the moves that you're bringing in. I think Livramento is great for double game week 32. Wildcard 32 is interesting. But if you are committed to a bench boost in 33, then of course I do not mind it. And of course, triple captaincy doesn't look like it is in your plans right now. So yes, I like the moves. You've dropped your team here. So Sells in between the sticks over Fabianski, I agree. Milenkovic, Livramento and Huijsen as your back three, and you're benching Gabriel and O'Shea. Yes, that makes complete sense. You've then got Mbeumo, which, by the way, I wish I had Mbeumo. Honestly, I feel like against Chelsea, this is a great fixture for Mbeumo. I really think those that own Mbeumo are in a good spot this week. Saka, Salah, Semenyo, and then a front three of Isak, Marmoush, and Mateta. Yeah, so your team picks itself this week. It looks great. Does that team benefit from a wild card in this week is the only question that I would ask you. I think, though, based on your team in isolation, it looks good. And obviously in game week 32, you're going to be looking to capitalise. So, Scott, even though a -4 is not ideal this week, I do like your team. And I don't think it necessarily needs a wild card this week because it's already got all the key players in. So, yes, I agree with the moves. And I think you could do really well this week. And I like the strategy that you're going for now, a slightly different one. Just seeing how many Palace you've got already. Yeah, I think you will need a wild card just to get those Palace players in. And again, thank you for the super chat, mate. And while we are on it, let me just drop in my team a minute, guys, because I'm conscious I haven't got that on your screen. Sorry, those are the Arsenal fixtures. Just a little bit of context of why I'm a little bit hesitant about Arsenal assets in general. It's just more a case of like, really difficult to pinpoint where those minutes are going to be. I just think Everton is obviously a tough game regardless from a defensive perspective for attackers. And then we got Real Madrid, Brentford, Real Madrid, Ipswich, Palace. And all of those are 3 days, 4 days apart. That's just the reason why I didn't go Saka myself and why I wanted to go Palmer for a couple of weeks and then pivot towards Saka. So let's just bring up my team a minute, guys, just to show you where I am at right now. So I wildcarded in game week 31. In game week 30. This is how the team landed. 52 points. Obviously, it's one of those sort of things where if I captained Marmoush, it was a different story. It was a green arrow, but not the one that obviously I was hoping for on a wild card. I spoke about previously how I had slight regrets not going for Marmoush, but at the same time, I also thought that Liverpool was going to finish like 2-0 and Salah just score both as he inevitably does. So I'm pretty fine with the decision in general, and I'm happy with the wild card. And again, for those that are wildcarding in game week 31, happy days, because I think what happened in the end was a lot of people postponed the wildcard until game week 31 because they wanted to wait for the official announcement. Now, I spoke about this on my stream and my videos last week, that I've seen the boys who predict fixtures. James at Planet FPL, Ben Krellin. These boys are spot on 9 times out of 10. So I was really in a position where I just backed the boys that were doing it. And then I thought to myself, does a wildcard 31 look any different to a wildcard 30? And the answer was no. I'm seeing a lot of the wildcard teams being built. They pretty much look like the team here, but Saliba instead of Gabriel. And nobody could have predicted that Gabriel injury. Wildcarders in game week 31 who are bringing in Saliba, the same could happen. Saliba gets injured in game week 31. So I'm not really fussed about that situation. The big difference here, of course, is that you would change Palmer for Saka. I'm pretty confident of that. So that's how my team's looking for game week 31. But like a lot of people who are wildcarded now or wildcarded previously, because your squad is really strong, you're in a position where actually, who the hell do you bench? So the big deliberation right now is, do I start Martinez over Raya? But I think because of Arsenal defensive coverage just being quite highly owned in general, I want a piece of that. So Raya is starting over Martinez regardless. I think the argument that I do have is maybe starting Konsa over Vardiel. I think Man United are pretty woeful, but weirdly are okay in these Manchester derbies. And if Vardiel's playing as a centre-back, we don't really see that attacking potential that he might possess. So Konsa instead of Vardiel is a debate. And the other deliberation is Savinho over Salah. That is the final kind of like team selection. Now, I want to pop... Sorry, that was really poorly worded. This isn't the final team selection, but those are the only sort of team selection dilemmas that I'm still left with. Murphy's definitely playing. And to be honest with you, if Isak suddenly doesn't play, for example, then it kind of resolves my own issues here, because Savinho would just come in for Isak in that situation. So who would you bench? I'm just going to put a quick poll in, guys, for you to see who you bench between Salah and Savinho. There's no world I'm benching Jacob Murphy against one of the worst teams in the league. It just makes no sense. So I'd be interested to know who you bench between Salah and Savinho. Currently, I'm on Savinho, and we will come on to captaincy in a minute because I know a lot of people are curious about that. Mine is currently on Alexander Isak, and I'll explain my reasonings behind that in a minute. Just want to go through a few more questions and then we'll get into that. So FPL Cop, hope you're well, mate, is saying, who would you bench, Timber, Kirkez or Vardiel? So Timber is going to be assessed. I see no world where Timber, for example, is on the bench and comes on in the last 20 minutes. So I think Timber either starts or he plays 0 minutes. Kirkez's fixture, just to remind everybody, the fixtures is away against West Ham. I don't think that's a bad fixture at all. And then you've got Vardiel away against Man United. So I feel like personally, Kirkez has the more capacity for attacking returns and clean sheet, and he's probably the more exciting pick. I probably would lean towards Kirkez myself. However, if you've got no other Arsenal exposure, I would be tempted to start Timber in the knowledge that he probably either starts or gets 0 minutes. And then you've got your defender to cover them off. So that's currently where I'm at. I probably would go for starting Timber and probably knowing he doesn't come off the bench and having Kirkez second, as I do think there is potential for Kirkez in that game to have a decent haul. Gordon tuning in from Singapore. Never been Singapore, so I'll be very interested to know your thoughts, Gordon. If you lived there for ages, let me know. Let me know your setup there. Marley's saying, would you captain Isak with the chance of a 1-point cameo? Yeah, okay, so Marley's kind of done a good job there. Probably segueing us to captaincy. So I'm going to end the poll a minute here. You guys are saying, I've only put it up for a minute, by the way. I'll give it 30 seconds, this poll, just to see what you guys think. Who would you bench, Salah or Savinho? 63% currently go for Savinho, 37% saying Salah. Personally, I just want to chase the home game for Palace, and I think Salah is just a little bit better in terms of those guaranteed minutes than that of Savinho. That's my only argument right now. Could I see Savinho delivering in this game? Definitely. I think Savinho could definitely do well against Man United. Numbers are never phenomenal. I will say that of Savinho. Never looking at like 1+, apart from like here away against Wolves. Otherwise, it's been good, not phenomenal. In terms of Ismail Assar, I mean, some good numbers along the way. Yes, a little bit indifferent over this period, but I do quite like Salah. And in these 2 home games here, done very well. So I'm pretty certain I'm going to start Salah and just accept that it is what it is with Savinho. I had those points in game week 30, which were great. And hopefully I can have those points once again in 32 and 33. That's the current thought process. So I'll end the poll there a minute. And I'm going to put up the most important poll of the lot. And that is going to be, who is your Game Week 31 captain? So I think there's only a handful of players here. It's going to be Isak. It's going to be Salah. It's going to be Palmer. And who am I missing, guys? Nobody's going to go Saka because of those minutes risks. It probably is like a rogue Marmouche or something. So let me know in the poll, guys, who is your Game Week 31 captain? Let me talk about Isak. So the news that we have from Eddie Howe, and let's be honest, Eddie Howe doesn't really ever tell us any real stuff. So just kind of take everything Eddie Howe says with a pinch of salt. He stated that Trippier and Isak are going to be assessed in preparation for Game Week 31. Isak went off with a slight niggle with his groin. He had it in the warm-up before the game, managed, how many minutes did he play in the end? Managed 65 minutes and then was taken off as a precaution. So that's not ideal preparation at all. And we need to remember, anybody asking about any Isak news, we ain't going to get any. And anybody that reveals any on Twitter, I would argue, is probably just doing it for a bit of interaction, engagement, because the game is on Monday night. Now, on one hand, that's terrible because we're not going to get any news, but it is good if there ever was a chance for him to play. Monday night game feels good in that sense. If he was playing today, I'd be a little bit concerned. And the good thing as well is that Game Week 32 is on the Sunday, so it's not like it's a Monday, Saturday lunchtime turnaround. So I would like to think Isak is in a position where, you know, they could play him if they were in a position that they haven't got any midweek game to worry about like the Champions League teams. So the reason why I've got the captaincy on Alexander Isak is, let me know in the chat if you think this is wrong. I personally think Isak either starts or he gets 0 minutes. I don't really see a situation, firstly, where Newcastle put themselves in a spot where with 20 minutes to go, they're losing the game and they need to chase it. I just don't see that. I think Newcastle probably win this game quite comfortably of what I've seen from Leicester. So if we make the assumption that Newcastle are winning, does Isak need to come off the bench in the last 20 minutes and take any sort of risk with him? I would argue no. So I think we're going to be in a spot where either Isak starts and you get 60 minutes, happy days, or you get 0 minutes. And then that's really important where the vice captaincy lands, which for me right now is going to be Mo Salah. So I think I'm going to put the captaincy on Isak on that premise, knowing that I've got Savinho coming in as an auto sub for Isak if he gets 0 minutes, and the captaincy goes on Mo Salah. I know it's a bit risky because Mo Salah's ownership is going to be 100% plus, and going against him is always risky. Now, with these away games, City, 14 points, Villa, 12 points, Everton, 13 points, Bournemouth, 16 points. This isn't helping my case right now. West Ham, 16 points, 21 against Spurs, 18 against Newcastle. Okay, maybe I need to change this. 10 against Arsenal. Goodness me, that was not pretty viewing at all. Okay, that might change things a little bit looking at that. No, I do feel like the upside is there regarding Alexander Isak. Now, I'm just going to quickly check on Twitter to see if there's any sort of news that I've missed maybe regarding Isak. I doubt it very much. I doubt it very much. But that is kind of my thought process right now in terms of Alexander Isak is I think he either starts or he gets 0 minutes. And I feel like it is a great opportunity to go for him. Yeah, I can't see anything on Twitter regarding anything like Isak has been ruled out. And even then, that doesn't change much, does it? The captaincy just goes by default to... Sorry, I'm just looking here right now. Cool. So, just seeing if there's any news. Yeah, so that's the reasoning for Isak. Currently in the poll, we have got 61% go for Isak, 31% on Mo Salah, 8% on Palmer. The problem with going with Captaincy on Isak, and he plays, is you want Salah to blank, which is not ideal. But Fulham away is a tricky game regardless. So just going to go through some of the questions, guys, and then we will get back into some chat about my team and obviously going forward. Just going to try and play catch up here. So I've covered that off. Bench Eze or Savinho this week. Personally, I would start Eze over Savinho myself. And more technique. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Heather, morning Nacho from a sunny Ireland. Thoughts on Timber starting? Best of luck this game. Heather, thank you for tuning in again. Always on the streams. Massively appreciated. And sunny Ireland as well. I've only been Dublin myself. I need to spread my wings a little bit in Ireland and check out a bit more. So any recommendations in Ireland, let me know, Heather. So thoughts on Timber starting? I think the recent news from Arteta was that they're going to assess him and see how it goes. I think, again, the same thing for Timber, where I think he either starts or he gets 0 minutes. Now, remember, the Arsenal game is the lunchtime kickoff. So I would advise maybe staying active on Twitter up until the deadline if you really want to see if we get any sort of news. But I think you could start him with a thought process that he starts or gets 0 minutes. Let me know the rest of your defence, because maybe if you've got great defenders, you just put Timber on the bench and be comfortable with it. Zeus, good morning. How are you doing today? I'm doing very well. Bit of a crazy month with work. I work in like finance and end of tax year. For anybody that does it knows that it's pretty chaos. So that's ended now, which is great. So should be back a little bit in terms of just like my general energy levels. So that'd be great. But Zeus, let me know in the chat how you're doing. Simon's saying, what if I only had one free transfer and triple Newcastle and Gabriel and want to play assistant manager chip? Okay, so I apologise to people with my content this week. It really hasn't been considering assistant managers. And I think naturally when you do your own team, you do content, sometimes you get a little bit biased and forget about the general game, and you sometimes think about your own. So wildcard 30, wildcard 31, and forget about those of assistant managers. So in terms of this game week in isolation, if you do have triple Newcastle, I'd find it very hard to sit here and recommend you to sell a Newcastle to go to Eddie Howe, even though I do think Newcastle are really good for the next few weeks. So for this game week in isolation, if you want to chase table bonus, the only ones you really have is West Ham against Bournemouth. So you'd be going for Graham Potter. The problem is you'd then be selling him in game week 32 and using a transfer. Or, I'm going to be honest with you, I would go Thomas Frank. I'm a Chelsea fan. I still think we are very fragile defensively. And I think Brentford have the players available to hurt us. And I just really wouldn't be surprised if that was a Brentford win. We look quite tired in the second half against Spurs, and I think we got over the line a little bit. So I think that is going to be a good game for Brentford. And I think Thomas Frank could be a really nice differential. The problem is you then got to sell him in 32 away against Arsenal, which is not ideal at all. Although that is going to be in between Real Madrid games. So never know. You never know on that one there. So look, you could do a Newcastle player out, bring in somebody else, and then do Eddie Howe for this one, which is just what I would like to think is a guaranteed 10-pointer. And then you've got Eddie Howe for this and this. Neither table bonus, but I think that is the strategy that a lot of people who are going assistant manager are going for. And then in game week 33, I would argue you would look to then sell him because he has Villa away, and you'd either pivot towards Glasner for the double with Bournemouth and Arsenal away. Don't love it, but it's still a double. Or you'd be looking somewhere else. So let me know your current thought process, mate, on that one. Personally, I have no idea regarding Gakpo. No idea whether he starts. Alanga or Savinho? Really difficult. Really difficult to call that one, to be honest with you. I probably would go controversially Alanga. Probably controversially Alanga on that one. Which defenders will you look at other than Forest if you've used wildcard and have no free hit? So you've used your wildcard and you have no free hit. Okay, so let's get up the fixtures a minute. So what's really important is that you need to consider game week 34. I don't know the rest of your team. So if you're able to bring in a player that blanks in game week 34, because you've already got 3 defenders. So look at the game week 34 column. If you've already got a Newcastle defender, you've got 8 Nori, and you've got a West Ham defender, happy days, you're covered. A little bit of context obviously would help. But if I was buying a defender right now to cover me, the first one is just you have to get a Newcastle one in, because game week 31, fantastic. Game week 32, I think they win at least one of those games, and they have Ipswich at home in game week 34. So that is your absolute priority if you're not already. Then I would argue 8 Nor is quite an interesting one. No double, but of course he plays it in blank game week 34. Outside of that, you don't have any teams, of course, that double in 33 that also play in game week 34. So I would say to you, Newcastle the priority. Then I think 8 Nor is quite a nice differential. Outside of that, I think you mentioned Forest. You've got Forest, so that would be my temptation there. Is Saka worth it this week? Charlie, let me know what you mean by worth it. Does that mean a points hit to get him in? Do you mean selling Palmer? Wouldn't be taking Saka in for a points hit, and I wouldn't be selling Palmer to Saka this week, personally. Frank or Potter, assistant manager. Look, I'm a Chelsea fan. I might be weirdly against my team in terms of how bullish I am. I think Brentford just have the tools available to hurt us this week. Neither, I would argue, allow you to roll it into game week 32 as well. I think, who would I rather have? West Ham away against Liverpool, or Thomas Frank away against Arsenal in the middle of a Real Madrid first and second leg? Probably rather have Thomas Frank than Potter myself. Chris, great channel, by the way. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Chris. Massively appreciated. Charlie saying, hi, Nacho. Munoz or Livramento, what is your thoughts? Charlie, let me know, is that to buy or to start? This week, I would be starting, personally, Livramento over Munoz, and I would probably be prioritising the purchase of Munoz if you have a free hit available in 34. Sorry, I'm a little bit behind on the chat here. Sorry, guys. Isak, if he plays or not, he won't play any minutes. Yeah, so that's kind of my thought process, and why I've currently got my team looking like this is I just think Isak either gets 65 to 70 minutes or he doesn't get any minutes whatsoever. So the captaincy might just by default, for a lot of people, land on Mo Salah. I think if I just captain Mo Salah, when they play in, I think if I captain Mo Salah and then Isak just rocks up on the Monday night, I'm going to be really annoyed at myself. Really annoyed at myself. Again, I just want to look on Twitter to see regarding Bukayo Saka if there's been any early team leaks. Because we sometimes do get that. And guys, it's worth noting as well. Okay, so we have had... So, let me try and get this up a minute. Sorry, guys. I'm kind of chatting to myself right now. Let me see if this comes up for you. So, basically, we've had this regarding Isak. Can you guys see that okay? Let me know. Hopefully you can see that okay. As you can see here, Craig Hope, who is like a credible Daily Mail chief, so like pretty legit, has stated that for all my FPLers in my DMs and asking in comments, yes, I think Isak will be fine. Now look, let's be honest, like, are we going to take that as absolute gospel? No, we're not, because Eddie Howe can literally do whatever he bloody wants. But this is a bit more confirmation bias for myself for the captaincy on Alexander Isak. And I just think I want to chase the upside right now this week as opposed to Mo Salah. So let me know your thoughts in the chat, guys. But it looks like Isak, I'm not going to say he's fit, but there is a assumption that there is a chance of him being fit. Yes. Let me just, I've got this up ready to go as well, guys. The FPL.team, just to show you what I'm going to be looking like over the next few weeks. Let me just get this sorted on how my team actually looks. I think we're looking like something like that, I think. Captain there. That's how we're looking. I'll bring that up in a second so we can talk through it. What else is going on in the chat? Which 2 out of the 3 should I pick? Salah, Eze, and Saka. Look, I think if you own Saka and we get no early team news, I would have to start Bukayo Saka. And then it's Eze versus Salah. And this is why I didn't personally go for the combination of both, because I honestly couldn't split them. I honestly think you just flip a coin, mate. I don't feel confident right now being like, I think one is better than the other. I really don't have an opinion on it. If you force me to pick one, I'd always go for the guy who... I'd always go for the baller. I'm a little bit biased where, like, if I owned Eze, I'd just be like, the bloke can just do something out of nothing. I would go for Eze myself. But honestly, mate, you have to understand both could do okay. Semenyo to Rodgers, I like, but we haven't had any confirmation whether Rodgers is 100% fit. So I like Rodgers long term, but for this week, do you get him? I don't know on that one. Start Savinho, Vardiel, or Sarr. Well, this kind of answers your question here, the way that I've got it, because I own all of those. I've covered Assistant Manager, Camping Republic, so maybe rewind it just a little bit in terms of my context on that one. Vice Captaincy Palmer over Salah. Don't mind it, but I just think if I'm not going to have Isak, I want to have that Salah guarantee myself. Everything Wild Atlantic Way. I will make a note of that for my future travels. Definitely. Thank you. Thank you for the recommendation. Double down on Arsenal or play Vardiel. Look, who do I think's got more chance of a clean sheet? Probably still Arsenal. So yeah, I probably would double down if I had it. Rodgers or Savinho on a wild card. Look, very differing kind of players. I think Rodgers gets you the double in 33. Savinho gets that as well. But Rodgers plays away against Southampton. The problem, they have got Champions League either side of that. Could he be rotated in that? Definitely. So I think Rodgers is probably the safer bet, but I just like the Savinho punt, and hence why I went there myself. Now, I'm just going to quickly put a little run through of my team on what I'm planning. So this is pretty much my team locked in. If Savinho does well, he does well. It is what it is. And Conso could start against Forest, but right now I'm leaning towards this combination. Game week 32. Now, the reason why I built my wildcard in game week 30 as it is kind of dependent on Isak's fitness. So if I want to bench boost in game week 32, I have to sell Gabriel to capitalise on it. So I would do Gabriel to Saliba. But it's the reason why I'm not planning to sell Gabriel this week is I don't really know what I want to do with his position. So the plan is just to get to game week 32 and have full flexibility. If I look at my team and think, oh, I just don't trust Aston Villa in between the PSG first and second leg, then I will simply just put the triple captaincy on Alexander Isak and be done with it. And I'll be very content with this team. I think it picks itself. I've got all the doublers in the team. I would probably start Ray over Martinez but I could easily bring him in. And there is an argument I could play Concert over Vardiel as an example, and it could look like this. And I would roll the transfer. Then coming into game week 33, team would look like this. One move that I 100% would do, as long as he's fit, is Cole Palmer to Saka, one of my 3 transfers. Another move that I'll be very tempted to make is Alexander Isak to Watkins. That definitely would be a temptation, and it would bring me in another double game weeker. And the team would look like this. Finally, of course, I would have to make the Gabriel move, and it would look like probably boring, but it probably would be looking like that. And then I would bench boost this. The issues for those that are asking about game week 33, because that just looks so obvious to do. The problems. I sound like Thierry Henry, the problems. If anyone's seen that. So we have got FA Cup semi-final a few days after those second parts. So, for example, Crystal Palace away against Arsenal. A few days after that, they have got their FA Cup semi-final. I think we see a heavily rotated Crystal Palace team against Arsenal away, which is great for those that are going for Bukayo Saka. Not so good for those that are obviously relying on Palace in both of those fixtures. And of course, the same is going to apply for Aston Villa as well. So there are problems with the bench boost in 33, 100%. And again, for those that are obviously making their transfers, you got to consider game week 34. So this is what my team would look like with those intended transfers. Not good at all. So I would be using my free hit in game week 34, and then the team would look like this roughly for game week 35. So I probably would go for Saliba instead of Konsa. I would probably be looking at doing Gvardiol instead of Livramento, and I would probably take a punt on that there. And in terms of game week 35 in isolation, who would I be missing? You'd argue I would be missing some exposure from... To be honest with you, I think I'd be really well covered. I think game week 35, I would have the bulk of the main players. So I think game week 35 looks fantastic. And then there is some projections of a double in game week 36. And if that was to land the way that FPL.team have got it predicted, and again, it's worth noting this might not happen, the team would look, again, pretty strong. It would look like this. And then it would just be a case of future planning. So that is how my team is looking long term. But of course, lots can happen between now and then. Right, let's get back into the chat and see what is going on right now. So those are asking about Isak. Like I said, we had that tweet from Craig Hope, which is a journalist, stating that he thinks Isak will be fine. Read into that what you will. Read into that what you will. Covered that one off. Captain, vice captain on Murphy, FAO Tony. Personally, I just don't feel that great about that. So personally, I wouldn't do it. RO saying, if I play wildcard this game week, all of my players will blank in game week 34. What should I do? Because I don't have a free hit. Well, if you're going to wildcard this game week and all your players blank in game week 34, then you are going to have to make changes to your team to get yourself through game week 34. So again, for example, you're going to have triple Newcastle because they will allow you to have players in game week 34. And you got to make sure you're covered off. So look, maybe take out one of those City players and bring in, it's difficult for me to answer because, of course, I don't know what your wildcard team is. But what I would say to you is just get yourself well balanced throughout. That's the most important thing. Or if you've got transfers in the bank, remember, if you wildcard this week, you could roll in 32, roll in 33, at least get yourself 2 transfers. And then, if you wanted to, you could sell that Crystal Palace player in 34 to get to somebody who plays, and you could sell that Aston Villa player who then plays. So I think personally, Aston Villa might be the trap of them all because they got Champions League either side of the Southampton game, and they have got FA Cup semi-final a couple of days after the Man City game. So I think Villa are a very difficult team to invest in right now. Which 2 to play? Wan-Bissaka and Sarr, or Munoz and Savinho? Look, I just think I prefer Munoz over Wan-Bissaka myself. But I prefer Sarr over Savinho. So I would start Munoz and Sarr, funny enough. Savinho or Sarr, mate, the only way I can answer that is by putting up my own team. That's kind of what I'm going for, and I can't really say anything other than that. Start Foden or Savinho, I would go for... Look, if you've got Foden, I would start Foden over Savinho, yes. Marco saying, start Savinho or Eze and keep up the great content, bro. Marco, much appreciate it. And again, I can only really answer that by using my own team. I would start the Crystal Palace player over Savinho myself. Charlie, I got 1 free transfer. I have Bruno against Man City at home. Is it worth using the transfer to get in Saka, or should I roll for next week? I also have to eventually transfer out Gabriel. Okay, so look, Bruno and Man United could do the business against City. I still don't think City are that phenomenal defensively. So do I like Saka? I love Saka. I think he's a great pick. But do I think he is incredible this week? Famous last words, but I would argue no. I don't think he's phenomenal this week. So I probably would just hold Bruno Fernandes for this week and then reassess afterwards, especially if you've got some concerns already in your team. Sorry guys, I'm just seeing if there's any Saka news. I can't see anything right now. And I do apologise. I need to just quickly update some of the patrons as well on where I am landing. Sorry. Just need to see where I am going. Sorry guys, anyone just tune in, this is terrible content, but I'm just trying to quickly get the Patreons updated what my team is looking like, because I'm pretty content with that now. I'm pretty content with how that sits, and yeah, we'll see. I think we're catching up with the comments now, which is good. Would you bench João Pedro or Saka? Ooh. Look, I think if you own Saka, you start Saka. I think that is the kind of way I'm thinking about it, definitely, my friend. Heather, I'm going to captain Isak and we'll hide behind the couch for Salah being a Liverpool supporter. Heather, I will join you on that one 100%. It is going to be painful if Salah bags a brace on Sunday and we are waiting for that Isak news. Bench Ezil Sarr, I've covered that one off. Fernando, start Gordon or Semenyo. I would probably start Gordon and just hope that he plays, and just hope. When to use the assistant manager chip? Very, very team specific. You might have to give me a bit more information about what chips other than the assistant manager you have, Shaylin, on that one. Mitchell saying, hey man, what are your thoughts on replacing Gabriel? Notice you haven't made too many moves. Yes, so Mitchell, the reason why I'm not making any moves on Gabriel this week is, firstly, I look at my team and could Gabriel de Saliba improve my team this week? Yes, I think it could. And Gabriel has to be sold at some point regardless. And maybe it is a little bit foolish of me to not make the move this week, knowing that I'm going to want an Arsenal defender regardless. It probably is. I just think there's a lot of football happening. I think there's a lot of football going on right now. I think we've got, obviously, we got Arsenal playing Real Madrid first leg. We've got, obviously, a lot of teams involved. And even though Gabriel is a player that has to be sold for me, do I need his replacement this week? No, because I'm benching Concert at home against Forest, who I equally think is an okay game. So I'm of the opinion right now that Gabriel has to be sold, but I don't think it was a desperate move this week. And I've got 0.7 million in the bank, so I've got flexibility in my team. And I want those Champions League games to happen because I think teams are stretched right now. I think they really are stretched, and I might need just a bit more information going forward. That's why I've kept hold of Gabriel for now. Chris saying minus 16 to get Newcastle players and to set up a bench boost in 33. Chris, no. Minus 16 is never worth it. Bruno out for Saka. If I had Bruno, I still don't think Man City are the finished article by any means. So I think I'll just keep Bruno. I'll keep Bruno. Ahmed Mbeumo to Saka, Bruno to Sarr, or Murphy for -4. Look, going to be honest with you, as a Chelsea fan, I think Mbeumo is going to hurt Chelsea this week. So I would be keeping Mbeumo for this one game week in isolation. Thoughts on Son captain? Wow. I just can't advise it. I can't. The fixture's obviously the standout fixture, but the fact that Spurs have got Southampton and there has been no talk about Spurs is just kind of like where they're at right now. So no, I couldn't advise it because I still don't even know if Son starts. For those that wonder about the vice captaincy, I would just always put it on Mo Salah myself. If you're going to go for a rogue captain, And you probably would say Isak is a bit rogue, possibly with the worry about injury. I'd always want that voice just on somebody that is just that warm blanket, and Mo Salah is exactly that. Start Concert or Vardiel? I would start of those two. Start Concert or Vardiel. I've currently got Vardiel, and I think I'm going to be locked in on that. Am I locked in on Vardiel? That's the big question. Do I think Vardiel is actually where I want to be? I still think Forest are good, aren't they? Like, I think Vardiel's still good. Yeah, sorry guys, I'm just seeing if there's any kind of like last minute information regarding Bukayo Saka, but I don't see anything right now. So I think I am just in a spot where I am going to bench. I think I am going to bench Konsa and just be done with it and just happily accept what will be a little bit. Again, guys, if you are enjoying the stream, please do consider dropping a like. I think we'll go for another 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up. That's kind of where I'm thinking right now. Just see what's popping off here. So, what else have we got? What else have we got, guys? Pop your stuff in the chat, please. Lee FPL, would you do Bruno to Saka for a -4? No, I wouldn't personally. Not for a -4. Bruno can do it against anybody. All he needs is a penalty and he picks up top bonus. And I still don't think Man City are watertight defensively, even though I am starting Vardiel right now. Umar saying, what's your best front three at Wildcard 31? Well, I've actually built a wildcard team here for anybody that is interested on what direction I would go in. But of course, lots can change. Lots can change. Rare Martinez for the flexibility of bench boosting in 32 or 33. If you're really clear on where you'd bench boost, then that might change Martinez to an Areola, for example, in Gameweek 33. I think the defenders, Munoz, I would put in Saliba, Livramento, Vardiel, and Konsa. I'm pretty content with that defence. Midfield, Salah would be in, Saka would be in. I think you've got to have a Palace midfielder, and Murphy just offers great value. And then Savinho is the real kind of one that depends on your budget. I'm seeing some people keep Mbeumo, and I really don't mind that at all. I just didn't have the budget to do so. And then Isak, Marmoush, and Mateta. I think Isak and Marmoush are locks. Then it comes down to your thought process on Mateta. I mean, if you were going outside of Mateta, and let's take a look at the fixtures, what forwards give you the upside that Mateta does? So there's no Newcastle forward outside of Isak. I don't think you'd go for a Wolves forward, would you really? Palace obviously is Mateta. You could go for a João Pedro. I think there definitely is upside, especially if you don't have a free hit in game week 34. He helps you through that part, same as Strand Larson does. I wouldn't be going for a Watkins right now with Champions League football coming up. West Ham don't have a forward that you can pick. Vissa, don't love it. So I'm kind of struggling to select a forward of the choices available. I think an interesting one is Nicholas Jackson. He could be really good, but I want to see that match fitness first and foremost, but I thought he looked really sharp against Spurs. And then the other one's Evan Nielsen. But I'd be pretty content with this team as a wild card at 31. And then it just comes down to a team value and if you can make those upgrades along the way. Hey man, double down on Arsenal or play Vardy out. Like I said, if I had Arsenal, I probably would just double down and be on it because I think Arsenal have better clean sheet odds than that of Vardy out. And it's worth noting with my team, if Gabriel was fit, I would have started him over Vardy out. Obviously, I'm just in that spot where I don't have that. So yeah, I'm leaning towards this right now. Start Bowen over Sarr. If I had Bowen this week, I would be asking myself, why do I own him if I'm not starting him this week? So, yeah, I think I would start Bowen. I think I would. Any home game, I would be saying to myself, yeah, let's start Bowen. Digne over Concert, yep, that could definitely be argued. I would just be looking at those quote-unquote guaranteed minutes. That is all. I'm going to work my way up a minute. Start Vardy or Timber. Quick fire questions here. I would start... I think Timber probably starts will get 0 minutes, so I probably would start Timber in the hope. If you're worried about Timber's minutes, just start Vardy out. You can sleep easy at night then. Do you think Gordon will start? Personally, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes off the bench because they got Harvey Barnes available to them and then plays the last 30 minutes, for example. That could definitely happen. Sorry, guys, just seeing if there's any Saka news. Nothing right now. Elanga or Sarr to start. I think I still would go for Sarr myself. Wildcard Rashford, Asensio and Rodgers. Who would you pick? I wouldn't go Asensio. I just really don't know about his minutes. And I don't look at him and think to myself, you are a guy that's going to play every single game. But when he does play, he's phenomenal. I still think it's Rodgers. But I get it why people are going for Rashford. But you need the 1.5 million extra to get him in. -4 for Burn. Who are you selling would be the question. Mbeumo or Elanga. Look, if you could afford Mbeumo, I still back Mbeumo. But Elanga is offering great value right now, of course. I think I've covered all the questions. If I've missed your question, guys, please pop it in again and I will answer it. When should I use my assistant manager chip? I would consider it this week. The main reason being is I think the assistant manager chip is the most powerful chip in the game. And you have got the opportunity to have a double manager in 32 and a double manager in 33. So I personally would be very tempted to use it this week. Of course, activating the assistant manager chip keeps it active for 3 consecutive game weeks, meaning, of course, that you don't have the opportunity to use another chip over that period. So just have that in the back of your mind. But in an ideal world, if I was using my assistant manager chip personally, I would go Eddie Howe for 31, Eddie Howe for 32, and then in game week 33, I would just judge it in that game week. I would either go to Glasner if I felt like there was upside, but personally, I think that is a bit of a problem because of the FA Cup semi-final. So then I'll be looking at it thinking, you know what, play safe, bring in Arteta for game week 33 for what I would say is 2 wins. Lucas saying, can I bench one? Saliba, Vardial, Livramento or Munoz? I'd be pretty content of comfortably benching Vardial in that situation. I think Livramento's got an amazing fixture. I think Munoz offers too much attacking potential to bench. And I think Saliba's clean sheet odds are going to be better than that of Vardial's. Bowen or Sarr? Bowen for me. Cucurella, Kirkez or Diaz? Is that to start? If that is to start, you know, I'd probably go for the upside of Kirkez myself. Have you used your wildcard yet? Yes, I used my wildcard in game week 30. Who to start, Sarr or Rashford? Incredibly tough. But with the home game, a Rashford, I think if I owned Rashford, I'd find it very hard to bench him. So I probably would go Rashford. Luke, hi mate, would you bench Saka or Marino this week? Look, if I owned Saka, there's no world I'm not starting him. So I would bench Marino. Mitchell saying, hey man, missed my second one. Apologies. Suggestions on what to do with Gabriel. 0 in the bank for me and wildcarded last week. Well, look, if you wildcarded last week, I think your team's probably going to look pretty good. So similar to myself, yes, you could do Gabriel to Saliba and start him, but is it going to hugely improve your team? I would argue no. So if your team looks something like mine, I would happily start Konsa over making the Gabriel transfer. So for that reason, if your team looks anything like mine, I would probably just roll the transfer and reassess the following game week. Yes, I've used my wildcard already. Cuckoo, cover that one. Eddie or Arteta for manager. Personally, I think Eddie Howe for the next 2 is just really good. Sarr or Murphy to buy. Look, it depends on your chip strategy. If you don't have a free hit in 34, buy Murphy because he has a game in 34. Otherwise, I think Sarr with the double-double is very appealing. Do I believe that I can see Crystal Palace winning any games in the following 3 game weeks? I'm thinking of Glasner as assistant manager. So, look, it's tricky. Crystal Palace at home against Brighton. Yes, I could see a win. Crystal Palace away against City and away against Newcastle. And we got to remind ourselves, what actually is a table bonus for Crystal Palace? So, hopefully you can see this here. You cannot at all. Right, let me sort this out a minute. Basically, I'll tell you what it is, okay? So, Glasner against Brighton is not a table bonus. Man City is a table bonus. Newcastle is a table bonus. Bournemouth isn't, but we don't know by game week 33. Arsenal will be. So you have got the huge potential of him getting table bonus opportunities. But if he doesn't win any of them, then it's not really that good. Like I said, I prefer Eddie Howe for 2, Glasner for 33, if you had to have a piece of Glasner. What I think about Langa over Serena, I've covered that. I think he's good for this week. And yes, he helps you for game week 34 blank as well. Right, I think I'm going to have to wrap it up there, guys. I do apologise, but I've just noticed the time. So we've got 25 minutes deadline. Don't worry, I've got to end the stream, but that doesn't mean it is the deadline. You've still got 25 minutes. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I am locked in on this team. I'm pretty content with it. Captaincy on Isak. I just want to chase the upside if he plays that Leicester game. I think it is delicious. So we're going to lock it in there. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Hope you have a great game week. I will be dropping content probably Sunday evening. If not, it'll be Monday morning. So make sure if you're not already, you are subscribed to the channel. And I will see you then. Have a great weekend in general, guys. Enjoy the